Welcome back everybody, Matt the Man here, hope you're doing well. Before we get started, they are doing some yard work outside at the neighbors, so I can't control the background noise. So you hear like a lawnmower or a blower, can't help that. Amazon put out their new original series, Mr. and Mrs. Smith. This is based on the 2005 movie that starred Brad Pitt, and Angelina Jolie. It was directed by Doug Liman. It was known for like The Bourne Identity at the time. He went on to do like Jumper, Edge of Tomorrow, American Made. He's gonna have the new Roadhouse movie coming out in March. But for some reason, they never made a sequel to Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Why? I don't know. It's a good movie. It was well received. It made the moolah. And you had Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie when they were still together. So I never understood why they never made a sequel to this movie. It will be 20 years old next year. But instead of another movie, they decided to make a TV series on Amazon. Now, the TV series stars Donald Glover and Maya Erskine. I think I'm saying that right. Probably not. Originally, it was going to be Donald Glover and Phoebe Waller-Bridge, but she was also going to be one of the creators, one of the writers. But her and Donald Glover did not see eye to eye, so she walked, and they brought in this actress. And I was looking forward to it. I liked it. I liked the movie that came out in 2005. I like spy films, that genre. I mean, let's check this out. Why not? It's only about 7 or 8 episodes, so not too long. Positives. Donald Glover, I think he was really good in here. He brought the charm, that charisma, some sexiness to the show. He did well in the action scenes. His chemistry with Maya Erskine, I don't know if I'm saying that right, worked really well. And then as each episode went on and they got closer and closer together, you definitely got that chemistry, which in this type of show or movie, obviously, just like Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie had great chemistry. That's why they ended up falling in love behind the scenes. You want that in a show, and I thought Donald Glover brought that. Maya Erskine, I've never seen her before. I thought she actually did a good job. It took me a while to get on board with her, though. I don't know if it was just the character development at the beginning wasn't there for me. But as the show went on, I started to really like her a lot. And like I said, her chemistry with Donald Glover really added to that in the show. This show also focuses on a lot more character development than the movie. And of course, this is a no-brainer. I mean, it's like watching a Superman movie, a 2-hour Superman movie, and then go watch Smallville, a season of Smallville. You're going to get a lot more character development in a 20-episode season than you are in a 2-hour movie. And this is only about 7 or 8 episodes, but even still, just 2 episodes of this show make up the entire runtime of the Mr. and Mrs. Smith movie. So, there you go. But there is a lot of character development, both with Donald Glover and Maya Erskine's character, John and Jane Smith. Mr. and Mrs. Smith. And I like that, you want that in a show. If it's all action, then it's like, why didn't you just make a 2-hour movie? I like how this show expanded the world a lot. We even at the very beginning we see two people, and I'm going to get to those in my negatives. We see two people that are also Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Then later in the season, we see Parker Posey and her Smith. Then there's another Mr. and Mrs. Smith. So there's multiple Mr. and Mrs. Smiths in this show. And I thought that expands this world. That was never shown in the movie. So I don't know if that was just an interesting, a new, fresh idea for the show. To distinguish from the movie. But I thought it worked. It almost reminded me a little bit of the Bourne franchise when they brought in Jeremy Renner. You know, and he's also another, almost like Jason Bourne, but isn't. Or in the Bourne Identity when we see like Clive Owen and some other people that are like Jason Bourne in the same program. Like it expands the world. Episodes, I thought half of these episodes worked for me. Other half, they were fine. Like episode 1, the Parker Posey episode worked. And then the last two episodes, 7 and 8, worked for me. Especially number 7, they had Sarah Paulson come in. She played the marriage counselor therapist, which we saw very briefly in the original Mr. and Mrs. Smith. And that's an entire episode with Sarah Paulson. And I've heard that wasn't too big on it. I'm like, oh my god, we're gonna have a marriage counseling episode. But as the episode went on, it really developed the characters and really brought some interesting layers to each of their, both John and Jane Smith. And I was like, okay. By the end of the episode, I'm like, I want more of that episode. But then I thought there were other episodes, like one with John Turturro, one with Ron Perlman, and I was just like, not doing it for me. In terms of my negatives with the show, yeah, I didn't think it needed more action. Like, it develops the characters a lot. More individual, more together, when they're together. But I thought in terms of an action, in terms of a spy show coming off of the original, I thought it needed a little bit more action. Even in like the last two episodes. Like in the 7th one, even though I liked it, there was very little to no action. And like it is only 8 episodes long, so I think it needed more. It also wasted a lot of actors in here. John Turturro was in one episode, but he didn't bring much to that episode. Ron Perlman didn't bring much to the episode he was in. Paul Dano. They have Paul Dano in here. One of the best actors working today. And when I say they waste him, I mean they completely waste his character. Now, unless he shows up in season 2, and he actually ends up being like a really important bad guy, well, in this season, he's just their neighbor. No offense to Donald Glover, and like that, I didn't know this other actress in the show, Maya Erskine, but you open your show. You open the first 10 to 15 minutes of your show showing a Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Not the one we're going to be following in the show, but another group of Mr. and Mrs. Smith. And you cast Alexander Skarsgård and Isa Gonzalez as this Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Alexander Skarsgård and Isa Gonzalez. The new Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie. and you kill them off in the first 10 minutes. This is not a spoiler because they actually released the clip almost a week before the show aired. You give me Alexander Skarsgård, one of the best actors also working today. He's big. He's good looking. He can be sexy. He can be a badass. And then you give me Eiza Gonzalez, one of the most hottest Latino actresses on the planet. And she's also building her career in Ambulance, Hobbs and Shaw. He was in that Vin Diesel one right before the pandemic happened. So she shows she can do action. But she's also one of the... Come on. I mean, look at her. And you give me that in the opening 10 minutes? And then that's it? We don't see them the rest of the show? The rest of the season? So the entire season, I'm thinking, I want a show, a prequel, on these two, Mr. and Mrs. Smith. I want to see a whole show on Alexander Skarsgård and Eiza Gonzalez. How did they end up here where they're getting killed? I want that show. The show is not sexy enough. Not sexy. Donald Glover has that in him, we've seen in other stuff, but the show did not give me that sexy time that we got from the original movie, Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie, where not only was the action and the chemistry great, but then they brought that sexiness to it that added to their relationship. We don't get that here. It's like Wakanda. We don't do that here. We don't do that here. That's what I'm saying. When you open the show with Eiza Gonzalez and Alexander Skarsgård, that screams sex appeal. Screams sex appeal. And just their chemistry, just what we see in that 10 minutes. What were you thinking? Enjoy the show for the first season. Not to mention that's here at the end of this show. They leave so many cliffhangers. So many things open-ended that I go, that's not good. That's not good. Because if you don't get a second season, this whole season doesn't matter. Overall, I give this a 4 out of 5. If they do another season, I will catch it, watch it. But I would rather them do a prequel with Alexander Skarsgård and Eiza Gonzalez. But that's just me. I'm sure I'm not in the minority in that one. Who wouldn't want to see Alexander Skarsgård and Eiza Gonzalez in a Mr. and Mrs. Maybe they can make a movie with them. So I'm at the mat here. Let me know what you thought of the Amazon series Mr. and Mrs. Smith on Amazon now. Leave a comment down below, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button.